within 12 months. And the sixth one should be ready within 4 months later. We're hoping to have it done by this September. So we are very excited about the future of broadband in the state of Maryland. We're very excited about the legislature's interest in supporting the broadband expansion program and continuing to do that good work if we have an opportunity to. And I just want to hand it over to the group now for the discussion. So thank you very much for listening, and I tried to keep it under 2 hours.
Thank you, Drew. I'm going to look to Charlotte next.
Good morning. So thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the caucus for hosting the meeting today and allowing us to speak on broadband. I wanted to just cover real quick the bills and the budget pending currently. So in the governor's capital budget, the local government infrastructure fund is funded at just over $15 million. We ask that money stay there. Please don't cut that. That's going to the Office of Rural Broadband, specifically for these rural broadband expansion projects. There's also, I would point out, currently $2 million in the Relief Act for rural broadband. The Senate had approved $5 million, was cut down in the committee yesterday. So we just asked, please don't cut that any further. And if anything, if conference, we could get some funding back. It's important. We've been asking for $20 million a year, we believe would be adequate for rural broadband expansion. There are some bills pending that will codify the Office of Rural Broadband. Will change its name potentially. I think there's a lot more discussion on that. And then there was just dropped in that joint trenching bill. So there'll be more conversation coming. And then, so I want to kick it over to the RMC chair, John Hartline, who's also the executive director of the Tri-County Council of Southern Maryland. John.
Good morning. And thank you for having me here, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to mention a couple of things. I came into the Tri-County Council about 7.5 years ago. At that time, there were members at the Broadband Cooperative that were funded to work with the locals in order to move the project forward. Shortly after I came in, that funding disappeared. We spent about 18 months advocating for it, and honestly, we gave up because there was apparent that that wasn't going to happen. What we have now is really a once in a blue moon chance. We have funding, we have the will, and we have the right people to get the job done. When Rick Gordon came on, he addressed our council here in Southern Maryland, and all 3 of our counties have projects and plans to build into the rural areas over the next 2 to 5 years. So I would just encourage you to keep the funding in place, anything that we can do to assist and support this. I am currently the treasurer of the Maryland Broadband Cooperative, and we're working this problem hard. We have also formed a broadband development advisory committee here in Southern Maryland for the 3 counties. So that's all I have to say, other than we need to keep the funds there and work this problem while the opportunity exists. Thank you.
And with that, Mr. Chairman, we'll yield back.
Oh, thank you for keeping a very concise thing, but this is a very important topic, and I'm sure there's members of the caucus that would have questions for you. Senator Carosa has her hand raised, and I would remind people to, if you're not speaking, to please mute, so for the courtesy of the other folks. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for making this the first priority for the Rural Caucus. I think optimistically what's great about focusing on this right now is that it's a shared priority for all constituencies. But I think with that, the challenge is then to make sure, if it's a shared priority for all constituencies, that our rural caucus, our rural areas receive their fair share of whatever broadband funding is out there. So number one, I'm glad we're focused on it. We on the Senate Republican caucus has made broadband access one of the top priorities. So I wanted to let the members know that. And, I think the consolidation of the information that you just gave us, we actually have a paper where we've tried to, first of all, pull all this information together, the different funding sources, and as Charlotte just noted, bills that are moving through. And I guess two questions. One's probably for Charlotte and one's probably for John Hartline. I think it's really important. So on the lower, as our chair knows, Delegate Otto, that Greg Padgham with the Tri-County Lower Eastern Shore has been our leader on working rural broadband issues. Want to make sure that there's that coordination with tri-counties across the board. And then Charlotte, we are depending on you as these bills are moving through. I know that we mentioned there's the SB 66. There's I guess Senator Hester has a bill and probably other bills that have been introduced. How we can make sure that we are being assertive on protecting rural broadband projects, funding, et cetera. So I'll hand that off and ask both Charlotte and John to briefly comment on that.
So absolutely, coordination with the regional councils is important, and we would continue to support and advocate that our regional councils are involved, and they are members of the Broadband Cooperative on the board, so they are engaged in that conversation. Related to the funding, so one of I think our biggest concerns is not losing the initial focus of the Office of Rural Broadband, which is on construction of actual networks, projects, and assets. It's a different solution than what the conversation it has been, which is more that equity issue. We know that and even this occurs in rural. We've got older folks, retirees on fixed incomes, and some of them just don't believe they need it. We just don't know exactly how many are out there that cannot afford the service, or they just don't want it because they don't think they can afford it. So we don't want to lose that focus on that construction aspect. Now, the funding is tied to that under the Local Government Infrastructure Fund. It is capital dollars. It can only be used for construction projects. Now, the $2 million in the Relief Act, I didn't see a lot of parameters on those. So that would be a concern that maybe you should clarify, particularly how the funding should be utilized.
Okay, so
should it be funded? Should it be used for capital construction projects, or would it be more of an operating expenditure?
Okay, so what I'm hearing, and this is where I need your help now, what I'm hearing is because we've had this construction focus, which is where we want to stay, we would want to see those relief dollars for construction, at least part of them. So, and we do have a good working relationship with Senator Doug Peters, the chairman of the Senate Capital Budget Subcommittee. But Charlotte, I will ask you, can you just send me an email enough that I can go to Senator Peters in person to say, we've had a focus. We need to stay focused on construction and projects and engage his assistance in seeing if we can get some of those relief dollars for construction.
Absolutely. I would just note that Senator Peters is a member of the Rural Maryland Council Executive Board. He represents. Yes, he is a member of the executive board. We are very happy.
Good news.
and he has been very supportive of rural broadband funding. In fact, we named him a rural champion this year. So
okay.
Yes, I
would say a logical follow-up then. Okay.
Yeah.
Senator, if I could just add briefly that I think that there has been concerns raised from the rural electeds, both in the General Assembly and at the county city level, that the focus is moving away from rural in these new pieces of legislation. Charlotte and I had a detailed conversation, and the idea of moving the office to statewide is a good idea. Helping everybody get broadband is not a bad idea. Our initial thought is just breaking down the funding in two separate measures. When the governor gave the original relief funds before the General Assembly did, he gave $10 million to rural and $5 million to urban. So I think having a conversation with Secretary Brinkley about breaking down the funding stream is the way you keep the focus on rural Maryland.
I agree.
Well, and that's the point. I mean, it's a more of a challenge. We don't have the number of accounts to spread the cost over during a ratepayer. So, I mean, we have to do that infrastructure to make, to put people on a level playing field.
Yes, sir.
This is John Hartline. Can I interject?
Yes, sir.
You were talking about the coordination of the various tri-county councils. The three on the Eastern Shore and myself, Susan O'Neill is the secretary of the Rural Broadband Cooperative, and I'm the treasurer. So, and in our office, Tom Dennison, who is the government liaison for SMECO, is the chairman. So we are focused across the state. We completely concur that we need to keep the capital funds there and not say, well, you've got lots of funds. They have to be capital funds if we're going to build in the rural areas. I think the situation is slightly more dire on the Eastern Shore. I hate to say that, but what they found out during the school shutting down is a lot of the cell phone towers do not have 4G, and you can't run anything video unless you're 4G or higher. So the problem is much worse over there, and they need to be able to get fiber directly to some of these towers and build more towers so that the kids can use the wireless to get to their classes. That problem doesn't exist that much here in Southern Maryland. Most of our towers are 4G or LTE, but we do a little more towers because of our hills and our valleys. And there are a lot of places where you can't get any cell phone service that's quality to run any video on. But I would say that focusing on two kinds of funds and making sure that the capital funds are adequate for us to move forward. And the Office of Rural Broadband, we can't say enough good things about them right now. They need to have the staff to do the work they need to do. That's all.
Thank you. I can't get voice in my living room at home on the cell phone towers. When they open up lesson plans and this, that, and the other, everything's loaded up. So I feel the pain. I have to go to Salisbury to the office to do these Zoom meetings. So,
Mr. Chair, just to close out that conversation and discussion, since Senator Eckert is one of the co-sponsors on SB 66 with Senator Elfreth, I would encourage Charlotte and others on this to please follow up and really, and I know she's been a leader on this and I want to give her credit, but some of us were a little, we made this a priority, but the point that Leader Simon Eyre made is, we want to make sure that we're not just talking about putting an office together and coordination, that we need that, this needs to be bold what we're doing, and we need to protect what we already have and make sure it's a priority, because I am concerned that we've been working on rural broadband access issue for years, and now, it looks like the rest of the Maryland General Assembly has caught up with us, and we need to make sure that we continue to make our progress, and it's not, their catching up is not at our expense. So I would encourage you to really maybe put something in writing from the caucus, from the Rural Caucus, from your organization, that really just underscores what we need to be doing for rural broadband.
thank you, Senator. I think you summed it up. I mean, we've put some footing down to lay the foundation, and obviously the Maryland Broadband Cooperative is was the important part of that. And now we got the COVID-19 has emphasized the need that we have and the potential that we have, in my perspective. So, Tyler, if you have any comments on that, or I'll open it up to questions from the rest of the caucus.
COVID has definitely highlighted a problem. I mean, we get reports and stories that people are driving to McDonald's to use the Wi-Fi in the parking lot. We get reports that they're driving to their primary school to sit in the parking lot to get their Zoom. And frankly, Mr. Chairman, that's a problem. Unfortunately, it's not a problem that can be fixed overnight, but it is a problem that can be fixed with money. Candidly, one of the things that we keep talking about is the more money that we put into the ground or onto poles is the more people that are going to get past and have access to connectivity. As Charlotte mentioned, there's $15 million currently in the capital budget. The Senate approved $5 million in the Relief Act. That was cut in the House yesterday down to $2 million. I'm sure that the number will be different than $2 million when it comes out of conference, but for every dollar that gets put into that account, people get served. And there's just nothing there's no way around it. The more money that goes into putting fiber into the ground or onto electric poles, the more people that have access. And the cooperative specifically is trying our best to go to the places that the other providers won't go, because that's our mission. Our mission is to hook up the people that other providers aren't. And then once Maryland Broadband goes into a neighborhood, 75 providers have access to that fiber, not just one. And Drew's trying to chime in, I think.
No, thank you, Tyler. Yeah, I was going to make that exact same point that whenever we get to be involved, it provides not only access but competition and choice and sustainability, which is really, I think, the one of the key things that I would think the legislature would be most concerned about was making sure that the investments have a long-term value. The other comment I wanted to make and share was that I would just encourage the legislature to be thinking about this problem as one that will not only require money, but constancy of purpose and sustained action over a period of time. Because, we've appreciated working with the Office of Rural Broadband. John was very clear about that. They've been a pleasure to work with, and we're solving problems everywhere we can. But I also think, and I think COVID-19 brought this out in stunning relief, that this issue, to get it solved for everyone, is a pretty big issue. I mean, it's a very expensive answer. And just as an example, because no one has the data at their fingertips to say exactly how much it would cost, but what goes through my mind is Talbot County. And Talbot County is a sort of an average-sized, reasonably prosperous, well-managed county that has excellent services out of Eastern Utilities. Atlantic Broadband is there, Choptank Electric is there, and there are some other players in the county. Yet the county has gaps in it to such a degree that the U.S. Department of Agriculture, I believe, invested $17 million in helping Eastern Utilities build out the fiber assets necessary to bring services to the unserved just in Talbot County. So if Talbot County is 17 million or more to get to an end state that we're looking for, imagine and extrapolate what the cost is statewide. So that's just the thought I wanted to share.
Thank you, Drew. I appreciate that. And it is a substantial investment, and it impacts many aspects of our communities. I mean, from healthcare with telehealth and all that we need in the rural areas that we can't get the professional providers and specialists to education, particularly. There's a lot of savings that we could have in the education, but they're not going to share any of them $4 billion increase that they're asking for right now. But I appreciate it. I have a hand up. Sean Looney is seeking to.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I just want to mention two things. Number one is the outstanding work that Drew Van Dopp and Tyler Pan have done through the years on this issue with very, very limited resources. And Senator Carrozza is exactly right. The rest of the world has finally realized what you, the Rural Caucus, has been saying for years. We need to do a better job at broadband throughout Maryland. And we now have a little bit of state money, a little bit of federal money. I think more federal money will be coming. So, but the thing I want to mention this caucus, and again, you've done a great job of this too, is we need to make sure that we don't increase the cost of bringing broadband to unserved areas. And by that, I mean, be wary of legislation that's going to increase the cost on providers. And there are a lot of different forms of it. And, you know, one of the most egregious ways, and it's ironic that someone asked a question about this morning about the connection between net neutrality and broadband. There's no connection there. In fact, net neutrality will just decrease the investment in the state of Maryland. So that's one of those pieces of legislation that I hope the caucus will continue to oppose, because that will just make it that much more expensive for providers like Comcast, Verizon, and others to bring broadband to unserved areas of the state. So thank you to the caucus. Continue to fight against bad legislation that increases the cost on providers, because that's just going to make it take longer to bring service to unserved areas.
Thank you for your remarks. I have another hand, Reza Jafari.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Reza Jafari from Talbot County that Drew was talking about. I've been also involved in the other broadband initiatives and projects, not only in our own beloved country, but in other countries as well. One thing that is going to be critical for us, I'm going to take about 2 minutes or so of your time, your precious time, to share with you that what is happening right now in terms of legislation. As Sean mentioned, this is going to be extremely important in terms of how we put our dollars where it is supposed to be. Broadband and access to broadband, and Charlotte mentioned about affordability of broadband, has three segments. One is the infrastructure, making sure that the connectivity is spread all over the Eastern Shore, where all the rural areas have access. Second piece is the devices, making sure, yes, the line has been dropped in front of my house, but I don't have enough money or have access to devices that I can reach out and being able to use the connectivity for purposes of education or health or commerce or anything else. And the third piece of it is the digital literacy. Many of our citizens need to have digital literacy just to make sure that they understand how to use the device, how to use the technology, and make sure, again, that that is being beneficial. And all, instead of becoming only users, they're becoming producers and creators of content and other matters that we all can help. All this boils down to two things. One is, of course, the funding that we all talked about. But the funding is should not be only focused at the state level. We need to open our eyes into what is going to be made available at the federal level. But in order to get those funds, we need to have one thing and one thing alone, and that is the plan. If we do not have a plan, a clear plan, identified where we need it, how we need it, who is going to be using it, and I know we've been talking about, again, piecemeal during the past 5 or 10 years. I used to live in Annapolis. As a matter of fact, I had a long conversation with Senator Elford and with Senator Eckert in terms of what needs to be done now. Not that the SB 66 is in place. Now we wanted to create an office. This is going to be responsible for the creation of the plan and making sure, again, the services are being delivered. We do not want to create bureaucracy. We want to create availability. We want to create facilitation. We wanted to create enabling conditions that is going to help us to be able to provide this service. It is no longer a luxury. This is a necessity. This is almost like air, like water, like electricity. Access to broadband, it is now how important it is as we all know it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your remarks. We have to move on.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can I just interrupt real quick?
Yes.
We're going to have to leave the meeting right now. What we're going to do is my legislative aide, Mary Jane Dreyer, will take over the calling on questions and answers. So from this point on, you'll see that she'll be interacting with you all when a hand is
So
raised.
Mary Jane's my support now, correct?
She is your support.
Oh.
Thank you very much. I
We've
appreciate it.
improved here in the last 2 minutes. So
And
You're
Mr.
very
Chairman-
kind.
Mr. Chairman, I know that everybody has to go to caucus, and we're going to the floor here soon. So I'm going to put my email address in the chat. So anybody that doesn't get a chance to ask a question, happy to reach out. I'll coordinate with Charlotte, and we'll get we can get you some answers. We'll also work with our members. The other thing I wanted to volunteer, and I'm going to volunteer me and Charlotte again. I know Senator Carrozza has an interest in sending a letter about, focusing the money on rural. I think Charlotte and I would be happy to take a shot at drafting that for the caucus, if that was.
Please do.
Okay.
We'd like volunteers.
Well, it was either that or be voluntold eventually.
Yeah, happy to be proactive on
Get
that.
out in front of it.
Well, you know the background, Tyler, better than.
Yes, sir. We're happy to help.
Yeah, thank you. I see I have friends from Chop Tank Electric Cooperative. We talked about Southern Maryland. But Val, you have anything to add to the discussion here today?
Delegate, I'll just let everybody know that we are scheduled tomorrow, Friday morning, to brief the Eastern Shore delegation on what we're doing at the co-op in general, and then to really launch Chop Tank Fiber, our new logo and our website, and talk a little bit about the plans we have to start deploying fiber this summer and connecting homes. So I guess I'll invite everybody to kind of tune in tomorrow to Eastern Shore delegation. Our president and CEO, Mike Melandro, will be presenting our Chop Tank Fiber plans there. But thank you for including us today.
Well, great. I appreciate your initiative on that. Any of the caucus members have any questions or things they want to bring up at this point? Johnny, I see you're anxious right there.
I just want to apologize. I missed seeing everybody this morning. I've been on the phone trying to weed through the Relief Act that's coming up like a freight train, and prepare for some of the things that are going on today. Savannah from my office was on the phone. She took copious notes, and I just want to thank everybody for staying focused on that last mile connection, and reaching unserved areas. We've got a good momentum behind us. However, as everyone knows, we still have a long ways to go to get everybody connected, especially in the unserved areas. Good to see you. Thanks, Charles.
Thank you, Delegate. Anyone else have anything for the good of the group? We're going to meet again in March. I appreciate the support of the caucus and Delegate Arntz and Charlotte. Thank you for your help and certainly this topic we can't emphasize enough. So, and it's been on the top of the agenda in the 10 years that I've been in the legislature, and we just got to get that last mile and make it happen. So. Thank you all. Meeting,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
or I'll take a motion to adjourn if that's the most. We don't have a quorum, I don't think, of caucus members, but
I'll make a
meeting
motion.
adjourned. I'll see you in March. Thank
Thank
you.
you all very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Delegate.
you.